You probably don't consider yourself someone who wastes money, and you're likely right. You're not buying yachts. You're not gambling. You're not making decisions that look obviously reckless from the outside. But somewhere between your income and your bank balance at the end of the month, money is disappearing in ways that are harder to explain. Not in one big moment, in dozens of small ones. A purchase here, a subscription there. Something that felt completely justified at the time and barely registers as a memory a week later. This isn't about blaming yourself for spending money. It's about understanding why certain spending happens automatically before you've consciously decided anything, and what that pattern is quietly doing to your financial future. The belief. Most people believe their spending is rational. They believe they buy things because they need them, or because the price was right, or because they made a considered decision that the purchase was worth it. That belief is understandable. It's also largely wrong. The majority of unnecessary spending doesn't happen because people make poor decisions. It happens because many purchases bypass the decision-making process entirely. By the time you're at the checkout, physical or digital, the outcome was often determined before you even registered what was happening. The moment you understand what is really driving your spending is the moment you stop reacting to money and start controlling it. Why unnecessary spending feels good. The brain doesn't distinguish between the pleasure of buying something and the pleasure of the thing itself. The anticipation of a purchase, browsing, selecting, adding to cart, triggers the same reward response as receiving something genuinely valuable, which is why buying something can feel like progress, even when your financial life hasn't moved forward at all. Every unnecessary purchase that felt satisfying in the moment was satisfying because your brain processed it as a reward, not because the item itself delivered lasting value. This is why the feeling fades faster than you expect. The reward response peaks at the moment of purchase and drops off quickly after. The item remains. The satisfaction doesn't. And because the brain is always seeking that peak again, the cycle repeats. That's not a character flaw. That's neurochemistry. But it has a financial consequence that compounds quietly over time. The hidden triggers. Most unnecessary spending is driven by emotional states, not financial ones. Stress is one of the most consistent spending triggers most people never consciously identify. You don't even notice it happening. You have a difficult day, open your phone to distract yourself, and 20 minutes later a package is on its way. When the workday ends badly, when something feels out of control, when pressure builds without release, spending offers a moment of agency. A decision you can make right now that produces an immediate result. The purchase doesn't solve the stress, but it interrupts it briefly. And that interruption is enough for the brain to file it as relief. Social comparison works differently, but produces the same result. You don't need to feel consciously envious of someone to have their lifestyle influence your spending. Seeing a certain standard of living on social media, among colleagues, in your immediate environment, quietly recalibrates what feels normal to you. And once something feels normal, spending toward it no longer feels like a choice. It feels like maintenance. Then there's identity spending, perhaps the most expensive category of all. The things you buy to signal who you are, or who you're becoming, or how you want to be perceived. The brands that carry a message. The purchases that feel like investments in a version of yourself rather than transactions. None of this is irrational in isolation. All of it becomes expensive when it runs on autopilot for years. Why income doesn't solve this? If unnecessary spending were simply a resource problem, higher income would fix it. It doesn't. People who earn more tend to spend more, not proportionally, but often disproportionately. The spending triggers don't shrink with income. They scale. More income means access to more expensive versions of the same emotional responses. The stress-driven purchase becomes a larger one. The identity spending upgrades. The social comparison shifts to a higher reference group. This is why people earning 3 times what they earned 5 years ago sometimes feel no more financially secure than before. The income changed. The habits didn't. And habits always win in the long run. A higher salary is a tool. What you do with the tool depends entirely on whether the underlying spending patterns have been examined. The long-term cost most people never notice. The financial damage from unnecessary spending is rarely visible in any single month. That's what makes it so persistent. A few $100s or pounds of unnecessary spending each month doesn't feel significant against a decent salary. The bills are paid. The account isn't empty. life functions normally. But take that monthly amount and project it forward over 10 years, factoring in what it would have become if invested consistently. And the number changes character entirely. The real cost of unnecessary spending isn't the money that left your account. It's the wealth that never had the chance to exist. Every dollar spent on something that delivered no lasting value is a dollar that didn't compound, didn't grow, didn't build the kind of financial position that creates options later in life. The wealthy aren't wealthy because they earn dramatically more than everyone around them. Many of them simply converted a larger percentage of their income into assets instead of experiences that faded before the month ended. The gap between those two behaviors, accumulated over years, is where financial freedom either gets built or quietly stays out of reach. Most people think they need a better budget. What they actually need is a better pause between emotion and action. The single most effective intervention between an impulse and an unnecessary purchase is time. Not willpower, not restriction, just the deliberate introduction of a gap between the trigger and the transaction. 24 hours changes the calculation for most non-essential purchases. What felt urgent at the moment of impulse often feels optional by the following morning. That gap works because it moves the decision from the emotional brain, which responds to triggers, to the rational one, which can evaluate whether the purchase actually serves you. The second shift is learning to identify which emotional state preceded the spending, not to judge it, just to notice it. When you can name the trigger, stress, comparison, boredom, the desire to reward yourself, you create the possibility of addressing it directly rather than through spending. This doesn't eliminate the desire to spend. It changes the relationship between that desire and what you actually do, and over time. That relationship is the difference between a financial life that builds and one that stays level regardless of how much you earn. Unnecessary spending isn't a moral failure. It's a response to real triggers, stress, comparison, identity, reward, that the modern environment generates constantly and that the financial world has spent decades learning to exploit. Understanding that doesn't excuse the spending. It makes it visible, and visible patterns can be interrupted, redirected, replaced with decisions that actually serve the financial future you're working toward. The most expensive thing most people buy isn't a car or a holiday or a designer item. It's the habit of spending in response to feelings rather than intentions. And the moment you start spending with intention instead of reaction, every unnecessary purchase buys a few minutes of satisfaction. Every intentional investment buys years of freedom. Financial freedom isn't built by earning more. It's built by becoming harder to convince to spend. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this to help take your financial level to where it's supposed to be.